Hello. Good day,
Hello.
everybody.
Good
That was my
evening.
warm
Good
welcome.
night.
Oh, yes. Quite. A warm welcome to all who joined from various spots around the world. We're glad to have you with us. Oh, man, I'm tired. I don't know about you, but I'm a sleepy boy today. You a sleepy boy?
You know, it's been kind of a sleepy week for me.
I agree.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know.
I must concur.
Yes, quite.
Someone in chat said next episode gonna be lit. I got some bad news for you. Uh, it won't be next week.
Yes. Yeah, hopefully by
Unfortunately.
next episode they mean the one that's happening in 9 minutes.
I hope so. Yes, we're gonna go with that.
Because that's
We're
accurate.
gonna go with that.
It will absolutely be lit, as they say.
Oh, look at that. We got Sam in here.
Oh, Sam.
Throwback to
Yay.
last week.
Yes. It's already been a week, almost a week. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
And it seems people say that that Sam spilled my medical information and our unfortunate COVID run-in just at the very end of last week.
Yep.
And yeah, that was weird, very random. Didn't really have. You know what's weird, Noah, is I'm testing negative. I'm done. But I woke up today and I have a stuffy nose.
Really?
Yeah. Like I had a cold before COVID. Tested negative, got over it before we went out to LA.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I had left. It was like Monday or Tuesday that I had not been feeling great. Tested on Wednesday, negative. Went to LA. Somehow got COVID, but didn't feel anything. And then now that COVID's gone, I feel sick again.
What the heck?
I
That
don't
sucks.
understand it. I don't get it at all. I'll tell you what though. I think maybe COVID for me is the cure.
That's true. I mean, that was weird because as far as I know, you had no symptoms, right?
None.
Nothing?
I felt
Nothing?
perfectly. I was a 100% completely fine the entire time
Wow.
from last Wednesday until this morning. I was completely fine.
Hmm. Did you feel anything like at the very beginning? Because I know when I saw you in person, you were fine. And then, like,
Yeah.
the next day, did you feel anything?
Nope.
No, never.
Nope. Never. I don't get it. I don't understand. I'm a medical mystery. I don't get it.
It was so weird because, like, as soon as Sam said that he got COVID, we all took COVID tests to, like, be
Yeah.
safe. And
Yep.
yours was positive, which was, like, surprising because you were totally
Right. Did
fine.
you see my face? I was like, what?
I know, and I thought because, like, the day before, I had, like, pretty bad headache, and I thought maybe I had COVID, but I never ended up getting it from this either. I don't
Bro,
know,
I don't
dude.
understand it. I don't get it. Look, someone said the cold never went away. So when the COVID came, the cold was like, okay, hang on. Okay, I'll take a break. I'll wait. And
Yeah.
then the COVID cleared itself out. And it was like, okay, I'm back. I'm back. You got a cold again. I took 2 tests today, both negative. Took one yesterday, negative. I don't get it.
That's so I don't understand COVID. I don't understand how it works. It's crazy. Who gets it? Who doesn't get it? When they get it, doesn't make sense to me.
Someone said that YouTube's gonna flag this video because we're talking about the C word.
Oh yes.
Okay, well we'll move on swiftly and
Yes.
immediately. Honestly, Noah, I think we can get started.
I think so. We've got a lot to talk about.
We do. Okay, I'm ready when you are, my good sir.
All
My
right, go for
liege.
it. Go on your own time.
Welcome to Dark Mode, the podcast that brings you sage advice from 2 technology experts. And that's not just what we call ourselves, it's what our moms tell people when we take over Twitter and run it into the freaking ground. I'm your host, Elon Miani.
And I'm your host, Noah Musk. On this show, we take questions from listeners, attempt to answer them to varying degrees of success. Maybe, maybe even Elon Twitter levels of success, which would be very bad.
Oh,
And maybe even have a laugh or two along the way, as we just did.
and I surely hope that our advice is, shall we say, more successful than that of Elon Musk onto Twitter. It's a low bar, I know, but
Yeah.
hopefully, it doesn't take much for us to outdo that. But I like to take pride in the fact that we haven't sunken $44 billion into this podcast and then ruined it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, we were discussing this sometime recently. This podcast, I'm not sure if it even turns a profit with
No,
the
it does not.
StreamYard fees. Yeah, with all the StreamYard fees and whatever else and the equipment that we've bought for this, it doesn't turn a profit. But you know what? I'm still feeling pretty good because we didn't spend $44 billion on this, and we're not getting relentlessly trolled by everyone. Just a couple people.
Just a good most.
Yeah.
Now I do wonder. Speaking of the podcast, I think if I were to add it all up, the general ROI has not been great. I believe we spend about $460 a year on our streaming platform. I believe it's another $150 on our distribution platform. And then I think it was $500 a piece for the mics, couple hundred more for the Zoom recorder that you use, my preamp, my boom arm. So we're in this podcast maybe $2,000. Not bad.
Jackets. Don't forget about these jackets.
Oh, the jackets, that's $30 a piece.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's a big expense. I would say, let me give us a random example here. On a typical week, the podcast generates, I see.
Yeah.
Would you like to take a guess at what our revenue for a typical episode? And I'll even give you a high watermark. I'll give you a post iPhone launch high view episode as well. So I'll give you two chances to get this. What do you think we make per week?
This is AdSense revenue for one episode of the podcast.
Yes, that is correct. For a monetized episode of the podcast.
Couple bucks maybe. I don't know.
Give me a number here, buddy.
Does it count live streams? Are those monetized? I guess I see an ad before the stream starts, probably.
Yes. That is correct.
Right.
There is monetization when people join the stream. Sometimes they'll be served with an ad.
All right. Well, then I'll say, I don't know, $10.
$3. Three buckaroos.
That's the average per episode.
Yeah, that one's $3.10 here. Oh, that one is $3.10 as well. That one, oh dear, that's a low one, 81 cents.
Oh man.
Yeah, our last episode before the live one, the November Apples event episode we talked about, October 23rd. Oh, wow. $5.
Oh, all right.
Okay. I like
it. Get a $5 foot long right there.
We could get a whole entire $5 foot long before tax. Oh, $6 from this one. That's because someone super chatted us.
Oh.
Yeah. Every once in a while, there will be one that does make a number of dollars. Like 20.
Interesting. Well, you know what? We're not in this for the money. We're not in this for the money.
Exactly. Well, if we were, we'd be very bad at it.
And that's why we're not in it. We definitely didn't, make this podcast to make money. And now we've, failed at that and we're pivoting.
Yes.
We were never in it for the money.
We were never in it for the money. But if that had been a side ambition, we would have failed at that.
Certainly.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, it's regrettable. I think one thing that a lot of people actually don't realize is how expensive it is to run not just a podcast. Our podcast is fairly cheap, but a tech channel. Oh, I uh I have added up my expenses as one would hope I would do,
Uh-huh.
and I don't like doing that. It's a lot. I don't really I didn't really expect it. Actually, here I'll put it up to you and I'll put it up to the chat. How much do you guys think it cost me? And we'll say 2021, most recent year. How much do you think it cost to run the Luke Miani YouTube channel? And for context, while you think of an answer, that includes gear purchases, subscriptions like Photoshop, my music library, Final Cut plugins that have to get purchased periodically. Obviously, I need a lot of Macs, and
Yeah.
I don't return stuff very much because I always am pulling stuff out to compare, so those accumulate. Uh, Rent. I have rent portions of my rent that are work expenses that are deducted on taxes. So like add all of that up. What do you think?
Oh, that's got to be a lot. I mean, even like the Mac Studios thing where you got what, 3 Mac Studios? Like that right there is a
Okay,
pretty big
to be fair
chunk.
about the Mac Studios, 2 of those I did resell. I don't return
Okay.
things very much,
Okay.
but I will resell them. One of my Mac Studios, John Prosser uses. He's the one that bought it.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, I mean, all the Apple products, the rent, all the software, the streaming. I mean, we just heard, I don't know if I even realized how expensive this podcast was. Like I
Oh,
knew that
really?
we weren't making money on it, but I don't know if I realized
Yeah.
like with between like streaming platform and the distribution platform, like I don't know. I didn't really think about that. Um
Yeah.
yeah, this is one of those like, Google, like they make most of their money from ads and then that subsidizes all of the other parts. This podcast is subsidized by the Luke Miani
That
channel.
is exactly correct. This
Yes.
is a loss leader for us.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm
Sam
very proud
says
to be a part of that.
$3. So that's a good guess.
Are we doing over under here? Because
Okay, we can do
I don't know
over
about
under.
that. I don't know about
I'll go through
$3.
some of the guesses. We had 20
Yeah.
grand, 54, 20 to 30, 50 schmeckles, $1 trillion,
Oh,
40 and 60, 30,
I don't know. I like
etc.
these numbers. It's definitely got to be in the thousands. Obviously, it's in the thousands. It's got to be at
Yeah, well, it's
least.
in the thousands for the podcast, so
Yeah, it's got to be at least. I mean, what are people saying? 30,000, 40,000, 50,000. I don't know. I'm gonna start with 40,000, and then let's go from there.
So it depends on where you draw the lines, but I would ballpark it around 60.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's between that and taxes, YouTube is not a inexpensive business. There goes a wall panel. Our first of the
That
night.
was the quietest wall
It was
panel
really
falling.
quiet.
I barely
What?
even heard it myself. That was the quietest. It just very gracefully fell, and it's just face down on the ground. That was very nice.
We love to see it. That is quite surprising. Actually, wait a minute. I think I might have been low on that 60. I
Oh,
forgot about
jeez.
we did rent the office for 9
Oh,
months.
yeah, yeah.
So that I think I might have deducted. I think I had like 43,000 in deductions before I factored in my home office at my new space. So that's probably brings it up to 50, and then I don't deduct all the Macs because if I don't keep them for more than a year, they're not technically deductible, or I don't want to
Mm.
risk it. So that probably adds another 15 at least. Yeah. Yeah, it might be somewhere between 60 and 70 in all honesty. Oh god.
That is not cheap. And I do feel like people probably underestimate. You're like, oh, it's just one guy. He's like making some YouTube videos in his apartment, like whatever. But like, no, there's so much that goes on with this. It's crazy.
But fortunately, Zachariah David coming in here hot with the $2. Well, I'll get one after YouTube decides that they've earned the other one. But you know what? That's something. Appreciate it, Mr. David. That's the thing. I feel like having now met a lot of YouTubers, I think there's a lot of resentment for people that do sponsorship deals. And sponsorship deals, by the way, can pay a lot. A lot. But sometimes that's necessary because the expense, and larger YouTubers have like freaking Red cameras, Aris. They have like employees. Do you know how I can't even imagine having
Yeah.
a full-time employee. Like, bro, it's nuts.
Yeah, that's like scary when there's other people relying on you for like income, job stability, like all that.
Yeah.
That's a whole other level.
Because I mean, if I look at my month-to-month revenue, let me see if I can see that broken down. It's not very helpful. There's a view in here somewhere that shows me like a comparison in like a nice bar graph, but it can go up and down by about 70% month to month, depending
Wow.
on what's going on, depending on your views. One phenomenon that's always fun is sometimes you'll have like a summer month where views are low. And the problem is, like, this happened to me in August, right? Obviously, not a lot going on in August. Views get low. All of a sudden, sponsors who look at your average view duration, they just see however many views you've gotten and divide it by your videos, and there you go. And they say, all right, well, that's your average view. We're going to pay you based on that. But you, as the YouTuber, know that there's an Apple event in September and that your views are going to be much higher than that. But it's actually surprisingly hard to get people to pay for views that you're predicting but can't demonstrate. And so the result of that was, ironically, actually, some of my iPhone content that did surprisingly well was some of my lower paid sponsorship deals, just because they they operate based on your previous views, not your expected views.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like a challenge. It's definitely like, I don't know, it's a whole thing. Like when you're on your own and you're like figuring this stuff out, like you're negotiating or you're talking to these sponsor people, you're trying to get a good deal for you. It can be kind of hard to know. It can be kind of hard to even like talk to them, negotiate with them because they have, a lot of power here. If you need to take the money to keep your channel going, like, yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting position. I definitely won't complain though. I make much more money doing this than if I had continued on the career that my college major would have set me up for, which is why I'm doing it, obviously. So I can't complain. I can, however, complain about your heinous wall panels. Now, you did mention that 2 of them have been freshened up.
Yes, I did, and I believe I did this right, that the 2 that are behind me are the ones that are with the fresh tape, which is a strategic move because I don't want to get hit by the wall panels. So I'm hoping that the 2 that are behind me, they should stay up for the whole episode. Beyond that, I cannot make any guarantees. But I think usually this tape will last like 2 or 3 episodes full, and then it'll start falling off. That's usually what happens.
Wow. Okay. We're starting to get analytical with it. We've been doing this podcast for long enough. We can't afford to actually build a set, but we can analyze wall panel behaviors. That's good to know.
Yeah, I think there was like the theory one time we had the theory that it was trying to communicate, like the
Mm.
interstellar style, like books falling off the bookshelf kind of thing. And so we're still looking
Oh,
into that. We're not sure about that. We're still looking into it, but there's definitely something, there's
so
there's definitely some
fourth
some data here.
dimension Noah is sending you a message.
I think it's definitely, we're talking about all this, so we're speculating on things that haven't happened yet. Or we're,
Yeah.
we're talking about things that have happened that we may not remember correctly. Perhaps, fourth dimensional Noah is just trying to,
Mm.
help us out a little bit. Maybe not.
Maybe not. You know who is helping us out here is Noah Johnson. We got that $2 for Hi Senpai Daddy Luke. I hate that I felt obligated to read that. I'd much prefer to read this one from MacFan PR. Well, here is mine now. So there we go. We're keeping the lights on. Everything should be all good. I just have to make sure that my electricity bill clears because, of course, you don't want to be, oh no, we didn't raise enough money.
It's a good thing your internet's still working somehow. And your lights behind you, there's nice blue and purple and pink lights.
Oh, those are
Those are
oh
the
yeah,
emergency
my
lights.
check clear.
Oh,
Yeah, no, those are on an emergency generator. I actually have pedals under my desk, and so I'm
got
just
you.
sort of generating the electricity for those. Those are not actually plugged into outlets. Those are just on my little pedals down here.
That's that's
Yeah.
that's impressive.
Oh my goodness. I want to talk. I want to change gears completely. Totally different. Every out the window. Totally change a topic. All right. No transition.
Okay. That wasn't a
I don't know.
transition.
No, it wasn't. This has not been transist. So I don't know if you saw it, Noah. My video yesterday, I talked about the mixed reality headset. I feel like we haven't really given this enough time on the channel, on the podcast. I don't know that we've talked about it before, but with the metaverse, uh, I was going to say existing, I think is probably the most that I could say for it.
Uh-huh.
What do we actually think Apple can come up with?
I think I saw, was this your tweet or someone else's that was like the VR was the iPod and the mixed reality is going to be the iPhone? Was that you?
Yeah. I
Okay,
like
yeah.
that analogy. I didn't think of it until after the video went live, so I was like, damn, I can't put that in now. But I think that the mixed reality headset is the iPod to the glasses iPhone. Do you agree? Do you think that's an apt analysis?
I mean, obviously, we don't know what exactly Apple is going to launch here, but for me, I think it's a really good analogy because like the iPod was, I guess it is dead, right? Or is the iPod Touch still around? I mean, they haven't updated it. I'm gonna say was. The iPod
I
was.
know it was killed off, I think a year
Yeah.
ago. They did finally get rid of it, I think.
RIP. Okay, so the iPod was a dedicated music player for the most part. Obviously, it got video support, had the little breakout game, and a couple other things, whatever. But it was first and foremost a music player, and it was really, really good at that, and that's what everyone loved it for. And then the iPhone came, and there's the famous what was it, like a music player, or it was an iPod, a video device, and an internet communicator or something like that. Remember that
Yeah.
those three things? That
Yeah.
was the famous thing. So it was something
I think
so
that's
much
right.
more. Yeah, it was something like that, but it was so much more than just the one. So I definitely agree. Like VR, at least for me, I feel like the applications and the uses of it are somewhat like limited. Whereas with the
I
mixed
agree.
reality, especially if you can still do VR like things, but also do mixed reality or AR kind of things with it, so much more powerful. And so I really like that analogy because you're going from this like, thing that's really good at doing one thing and it's a little bit more basic to this thing that does so many other things and becomes like a more integral part of your life. And that seems like, how that would track for me, VR to mixed reality. So I like it.
I agree. And I think Apple is going okay. I have been thinking about doing a whole video about the metaverse because I think it is the biggest blunder that the world of tech has ever seen, next to Elon buying Twitter.
Wow, it's bold.
Like if you look at, I think we're entering a new era here. Okay? You look at the rise of social media or even the rise of big tech, starting with Apple, Microsoft, then you add Google to the mix, add stuff like PayPal, eBay, Twitter, Snapchat, YouTube, Netflix. You got this proliferation. It sort of accelerated once you got into the internet age throughout the 2000s. But you look at the 2010s, and what you saw was, with a few exceptions, like maybe I would count Vine and more recently TikTok, things have been mostly the same. The platforms are in their maturing stage, not their rapid growth stage. And what's happening now is we are getting to a point where tech big tech is mature. And now it becomes a point where instead of being the disruptor, they are now the disrupted. Big tech was displacing legacy business for a very long time. But now big tech is the legacy business. And it's essentially a matter of, will it survive? And when you look at certain companies, questionable decisions are potentially going to determine that. I think Facebook is at that point. I think Twitter is at that point, absolutely. And I could even see a lot of streaming platforms get to that point, Netflix being the first to be on shaky footing right now. What do you think of this very general analysis?
I think that's definitely a good point. And I think, you know, if you look at companies like Apple and Microsoft, for example, they're very diversified. And relative to these
Yeah.
other companies, they're playing it more safe. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but like, you know, Apple has their product lines that are great. And I'm not saying that they're not innovating and they're not doing new things, but they have these product lines. You know, they know they're good. They're building computers, they're building smartwatches, whatever. And obviously, you know, this mixed reality is going to be kind of a thing that shakes it up a little bit. But Apple's so big and they have so much going on that it's, you know, not as big of a risk for them. Or you look at Microsoft, you know,
Yeah.
they have all of their hardware stuff, they have Windows, they have Xbox, whatever. They have a ton of stuff going on. But if you look at like, you know, Facebook or Meta, for example, right, they're betting so much on this VR. They're betting like everything, or at least Zuck is betting like everything on this metaverse
Yeah.
VR kind of stuff. That's like that is like risky. It's definitely not safe. Although I guess like Facebook, you know, the younger people aren't really using it anymore, so that was kind of dying and they had to do something and they bought Instagram, and Instagram is good and I guess Instagram will be safe. But you know, this they're
I
dumping a lot of money into this VR.
I think Facebook might take Instagram down. I think Instagram is getting to a point of frustration such that people are abandoning it. I mean, obviously they are putting a ton of money into doing reels and stuff, but the thing that made Instagram popular was it is your photo social media site. Like when you look at a lot of the legacy social media sites, I think there's a difference in how they mature versus your Apple, your Amazon, your Microsoft. Those are predominantly hardware based, with the exception of Amazon, but they have a pretty diversified, you know, they have cloud services, they have video streaming, they have physical products. They have a lot going on such that I don't think they don't have all their eggs in one basket. Same with
Right.
Microsoft, same with Apple. There's a lot going on in all of those businesses. But the problem with social media, I would equate these social media companies that are purely digital, purely one single platform, as running a gaming YouTube channel that blows up off a trending game. You are reliant on a trend that is almost by definition temporary. And the problem is when you have to keep converting that trend, Some people that blow up doing a channel on a specific niche are able to widen and pivot. Others, they just kind of go down with the ship. Look at Snapchat. Snapchat was the personal video and photos that disappear. Instagram was photos and keep in touch with your friends. Facebook was more broadly that was loud.
Yeah.
Facebook was more broadly keep in touch with your friends. Vine was short form and clips. Reddit was memes and almost blog posts. YouTube was long form. Like they had these distinct specialties. But when you look at what's happening now, I see this like convergence. You know, every TikTok is like, hey, guess what? You can do 10-minute videos now. And I'm like, what? That's like antithetical to the purpose of this. And then YouTube is like, hey, you can do short vertical videos now. And then Instagram is like, hey, you guess what? Videos also do those. And Snapchat is like, we're gonna like pay people a bunch of money to post public stories, just like all the others. Like everything is kind of converging. And it's a survival of the fittest.
No, I definitely agree. It's definitely, and Instagram's, a good example of that because they stole stories from Snapchat and then they stole, reels from TikTok basically. Yeah. And then they kind of redesigned the app to prioritize that other like video reels content rather than, the pictures that you share with your friends. So I think that's a very good example of all of this stuff that's going on. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like, we're definitely going to talk about Twitter, which kind of,
we'll get to that later.
It kind of got struck by a meteor in the sense that like something very big and like very like something very big happened. Yes, very big and very transformative happened to it. Whereas if you look at something like Instagram, it's just slowly, it's like, feature creep is the, the industry term. It's just slowly gotten to this big bloated thing where they're trying to chase all the trends and keep people engaged as long as possible. And so maybe if it dies, it's a slower death. But yeah, I don't know.
Here's a great comment from Nicholas. What it all boils down to is, are you building a platform or are you building a feature? That's a very good point.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these platforms, and I would make this argument of the metaverse, if we try to loop it back in here, are not really, they're not building something that integrates that much into your life. I get the sense with the metaverse that I think the problem ultimately is that it's not a natural step. When you look at a lot of technological advancements, even social media ones, they're sort of answers to questions that you didn't realize you were asking. Do you know what I mean? Like it's something that you knew that you needed, but you couldn't articulate. YouTube was like, hey, what if we shared our home videos? We all in 2005, we're on this like tail end of going from VHS to digital. And they were like, well, if we have the internet and we have digital videos, why not share them with each other? Makes sense. That's an answer to a question. The iPhone is like we're carrying around these music players. We're carrying around these cameras. We're carrying around cell phones. Why are these different things? And I don't think that is true of the metaverse. The metaverse is like, hey, what if we, but on your face?
Yeah. Okay. Here's what I'll say about the metaverse. I watched this documentary called We Met in, oh my God, what is it called? We Met in VR, I think. We Met in Virtual Reality. It's a documentary on HBO Max, and it was really interesting. And I think, there's a lot of people, when I say a lot of, okay, the people that use the metaverse, or they use, I mean, obviously this documentary was in VR Chat, which is some
Mm,
like third party thing. It's not the one that Facebook is building, but these metaverses or these kinds of things definitely appeal to some people. And for a lot of the people that were like in this documentary, it was people who had social anxiety or some other sort of things that it was hard for them to interact in person, or maybe they had physical disabilities or other things that impacted them, but that they could go into this virtual world and meet other people, and some of them even had relationships, which eventually they met in person, and all
mhm.
this stuff. And I think that there is an audience, and there are people that it appeals to, but I don't
Mm.
think that it's like the iPhone or YouTube in the sense that it's like broadly appealing to everyone. I think it's appealing
Yeah,
to a subset of people, but to say that like this is the future for everyone, I don't think that that's true.
I think that's a fair analysis. I it it goes back to this comment by Nicholas here. Are you building a platform or are you building a feature? VR chat, that's a great feature. There are plenty of games that appeal to people that are interested in their features, but you don't spend all you don't integrate a game into your very being the way that we have smartphones or the internet broadly, or even a platform like YouTube or TikTok. Those are platforms that tend to be less, I want to say they're more subtle. I think the problem with the metaverse is that it's such an ordeal. It's like, hey, here I go. I'm going to put this big thing on my face and I'm going to hold these controllers and I'm going to do a bunch of stuff in here. And the other problem is, like, what question is it answering? Like, I keep seeing one use case that Meta is obsessed with, which is like, oh, you can have a virtual remote meeting where you're all around a table. Why? That nobody was asking for that. People have been perfectly content doing conference calls, doing Zoom calls, or going on an airplane. I really don't see why you would need this like half-baked, like animoji looking character. Like, could you really imagine the CEO of ExxonMobil talking about like a catastrophic oil spill as a glorified memoji? Come
Oh,
on.
gee.
That is a fucking joke. Like, no.
Yeah, I don't get, like, I don't know if they're like, oh, it makes it feel more immersive and more personal. But it's like you're not
No,
looking
it
at the
doesn't.
people, you're looking at like avatars of the people. It's like I don't buy
Yeah.
that. I really don't buy that.
Yeah, no, and it's still like I just keep they keep angling it for work, but it's absurd that anyone would ever use it for that. Like, they always show off these things. They're like, oh, guess what? We added legs that look ridiculous. So yeah, you added legs to the metaverse, and now all of a sudden, C-suite executives are like, you know what? This is the future. We are going to be hosting all of our meetings in this cartoon pantomime of reality, where everyone is sort of like this jittery, buggy cartoon mess, and everyone is just going to be distracted for the first 30 minutes of every single meeting with like, oh, my character's not working, or oh, this is freaking bizarre and unnatural. Like, you're talking about marketing a cartoon virtual reality game to professional business people in their 40s and 50s. No, that's not going to work.
If you think about the Zoom meetings, like, oh, you're muted, or like, oh, sorry, my camera's not working. Imagine that in this VR world. Imagine what that would look like.
Ugh.
That would just be a complete mess.
It does not make any sense. And that is why I mean, beyond that, just the hardware limitations, I think, rule it out. You will never see someone walking around with a VR headset. You will never see someone that will put on their VR headset in the morning and take it off at night. There is no person that does that. And by definition, it can't really be the future. If you're not bringing it with you or wearing it constantly, that is not a platform. That is a feature.
Yeah, I definitely think, because you said that point before that like all of these big things, these big steps forward and these things that we rely on all the time, that they're more subtle and they're more involved in our everyday lives. Whereas this, I'm sure there are some people who are very, very much into VR, but it's not going to be a thing that you're let's, like you said, you're not going to be doing it all the time, and when you are doing it, it's so completely consuming, it blocks out all of your senses, right? You put this big thing over your eyes and you're listening to it, so you can't hear anything. It's like, and you're sitting down, you really can't move. I mean, beyond like your little fenced area where you're like walking around, you can't like move around with it very much. So it's like, yeah, it's very much not subtle. It's very much not integrated into your life. It's like, oh, I'm going to pause my life so that I can go, into my VR headset. And for some people, again, like I said, for some people, that might be great. They might love it. I read some Twitter thread about some guy who says he works in VR every day and he wears his headset for like 8 hours a day and he like works on his virtual screens in his VR. And maybe there are some people like that, and I'm not going to judge them, and that's fine. But the majority of people, and that's what you need for something to be at the level of like the iPhone or YouTube, the majority of people aren't going to be using this like that. It'll just be like a fun toy or like a game console or something. It's not going to be the next thing.
And you'll notice, I think the very important thing is the one feature that we have not sort of shit on, if we're being honest, is, as you mentioned, using it for monitors. That's mixed reality. The only single application outside of playing games, which VR can be very fun for, that it actually has broad appeal, is that mixed reality application. And you don't have to. This information is readily available. The metaverse is, I would argue, already an unmitigated failure. There was a report back in October that said that they had almost no daily active users in Decentraland, which is one of the big like community forum type of things.
Uh-huh.
And now keep in mind, Meta has spent like over $1 billion developing this. And they responded to that claim and they said, no. We have 8,000 daily users. You're telling me that you spent $1.2 billion and you have 8,000 daily users, whereas GTA 5, a game from 10 years ago, which cost $300 million to develop, that has 100,000 daily active users. A 10-year-old game is doing better than your $1.2 billion metaverse. That is shockingly bad.
Yeah, that is that's such a bad defense. Like, oh, no one's using it. No, 8,000 people are using it. That's like almost worse than like not saying anything.
It is. Yeah, that's dude, to be bragging about having 8,000 people on your $1 billion platform, that is just heinous. It's heinous. And I honestly, I'm surprised that Meta, Zuck, was foolish enough to think that this is the future, because the answer, as we've discussed, is obviously mixed reality. If you want to talk about something that will save the biggest, richest company, and Mark Zuckerberg, who until the metaverse was a thing, was one of the richest people in the world. He's no longer in the top 10 because of this failure. And they couldn't have foreseen that. They couldn't have foreseen that depending 100% on tracking everyone's data for their entire source of revenue, and just depending on that and saying, well, it's a good thing that no one will ever introduce a feature that enables you to block that capability, our entire business model. It's unbelievable stupidity.
Yeah, I don't even. I don't know how this happened. Like, it's so like we look at that, we look at all the Twitter stuff. We're gonna talk about Twitter, like all the stuff that's going on, and like you look at it and you're like, who made this decision? How was this decision made? It's like crazy. And then like part of me is like, oh, these are like, big, powerful people with tons of money doing it. They must know something that we don't. And then part of me is like, no, they're just, they're full of hubris, and they don't know what they're talking about, and they think they know better, and they really don't. I don't know. It's just crazy.
Here's what I unironically believe. I think that tech companies that are started by a single person are the ones that can be the most shaky. If it's like a single person or a group of people with a good idea, there's always a rocky road. Even Apple, go back to the 80s and 90s. Oh boy. Steve Jobs may have been a visionary, but he was not a very good businessman for the first decade or so. Got fired. Then Apple hired other people to try to save the ship. They were way too financial. They almost sunk it, trying to bail it out. And, I think there's an element of luck whenever you get something like a lot of these cryptos that come and go, social media like Facebook, where it's like it's Mark Zuckerberg. When there's a person synonymous with a company, that's, I think, a scary thing, because let's be perfectly honest, there is always a degree of luck involved in these types of things. Like, you cannot just like randomly generate, completely independent of all external factors, a successful business. Luck is a necessity in human life. And the problem is, we as a species conflate luck with skill. There was an experiment that was done in Monopoly where they gave one set of people an explicit advantage. They could move around the board twice as fast, and every time they passed start, they got $200 instead of $100. Completely external factor, and an undeniable advantage. They won almost every single time, and almost every single time when asked, did you earn your victory? They said yes.
It's interesting, right? Because like you say, did you earn your victory? It's like, did you play the game? Did you play by the rules that were given to you? Did you win without cheating, but they played by the rules that were given to them? Yes, they did. But did they earn it, in the sense that it was, a level playing field, and that they actually, competed at the same way that other people did? No. That's really, and maybe that's where a lot of this comes from, where these very rich, very powerful people feel like they're the ones that know, they know the right decisions to make. It's because of that same effect, where they think like, I've worked all this much to get up to here, but a lot of it was an unlevel playing field, and a lot of it was luck. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's where it comes from.
There's a mentality of, I've done it before, I'll do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it just comes down to hubris, like you said before. this is all a very circuitous and socially commentating sort of way to say that I think that Apple's approach, which is a much broader way of looking at things, I think we could all agree that Apple is one of the least impulsive tech companies. Everything seems like it was sort of drawn up by a committee over in Apple land. And sometimes that's bad, sometimes that's good. In this case, I think it's good because when you look at the rumors for this VR mixed reality headset, they're immediately addressing some of the concerns that I would have. Number one, the metaverse really going into this weird, cringe virtual world when we have hardware that can't really make it very immersive, that's not gonna cut it. And Apple, I guarantee, didn't even give that a thought. They immediately went, okay, LiDAR, embedding your surroundings with this virtual augmentation, that is something that people will do. Now, the headset, as I mentioned, the iPod, I don't believe is going to be this huge mass market thing. I don't think it's going to be one of those, everyone has AirPods now, everyone's going to have the Apple headset in 5 years' time. No. I think the headset is a stepping stone. It's a way to develop and iterate this technology and shrink it to the point where it can be fit in the ultimate goal, a device that you wear that displays information that you can hopefully interact with in the world. That's the goal.
Yeah, I could definitely see VR. VR is like a logical. First of all, some of the stuff that they've been doing are logical stepping stones, like spatial audio, like putting
Yep.
LiDAR on everything. And
Yep.
LiDAR has some uses on the devices, that it's on, but it's not the most useful thing. But this would be another thing if they're collecting data and they're trying, different things and whatever. So that's part of it. So all these things are stepping stones. And then VR is a good stepping stone because you can really focus on getting everything working, because it's one thing to get everything working and then another thing to actually integrate it fully into someone's life and fully integrate it into their field of view. Transparent lenses, some sort of projection system, I guess, or something like that. To fully integrate it, get everything working. VR is takes away some of those. It introduces some of its own challenges, but it takes away some of those challenges, and so it does make sense as a stepping stone. And like we've seen them do some things to get up to this point. I think that definitely makes a lot of sense, and it could definitely be the thing where the VR headset isn't the big one and it may not stick around for a very long time, but yeah, it might be a stepping stone to the mixed reality.
And I think if we go back to the iPod analogy, that stepping stone in and of itself can still be very valuable. I mean, most of us we wouldn't buy an iPod now, but when the iPod was in its peak from 2001 to 2012, there was a reason why it was popular. It's that compared to other MP3 players, it was simply the best. Full stop. And when you look at this mixed reality headset, it's smaller. It's hopefully lighter and more comfortable. Remains to be seen. It looks like it's aluminum. I'm worried that it might be an AirPods Max situation where it's not long-term usable. But the displays for these things, micro OLED, 3000 PPI. That's what I'm talking about. Nothing ruins VR as much as having a visibly pixelated display an inch away from your retinas. That is, I hate that. It makes my eyes water and strain, and it makes me want to take it off.
Yeah, I agree.
And so having that contrast ratio, so it's not just like all of this blue light streaming into your eyeballs, having the pixel density and the Like, I mean, imagine using a crappy 1080p display up close on full brightness all the time. You'd be like, ah, and then switch that out for like a mini LED. Ooh, yeah, that's more like it. These, I mean, it's gonna be expensive. I think this is gonna be $5,000 out the door.
Yeah.
But as VR or hopefully AR applications go, I think it will be the best. I hope it'll be usable for gaming, to be honest, but I doubt it.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what Apple will do with this, because I think this is a very important it's very important when Apple launches this. This is, the first time that they're going into this, and this is the first time, obviously, like, Meta's a big company, don't get me wrong, but like I guess what they bought Oculus, so the Oculus Quest is a Meta Quest and whatever. But like
Yeah.
that's just always kind of been like, it's always been a gaming focused thing, or like a gaming accessory kind of thing. And there are, applications for enterprise, or for like virtual trainings for the medical field, or like technicians and repair people, and all that stuff. There are applications,
Yeah.
but wasn't really ever pitched as like a mass market thing. Whereas when Apple is launching something, they're trying to make it relatively mass market. Even something like the Mac Pro is not super mass market, but it's like,
they're
mass
not market than other workstations.
Yes, exactly. So when Apple launches this thing, it's a new product category that they're launching. They have to really explain it and really sell it, in the right way. Because if they launch it in the wrong way, or they sell it in the wrong way, it'll confuse customers. It'll probably turn them off. You can look at like the Apple Watch. I think that was the most recent major category. Maybe AirPods could be one, but like even the Apple Watch, smartwatches existed before, and Apple did change their strategy a bit. They got rid of the Edition. They focus more on the fitness rather than on the like notifications. Is still there, but they focus a lot more on the fitness stuff now, especially with the Ultra. So they can change a little bit, but I feel like even from the beginning, Apple had this idea like the Apple Watch is going to be the most personal device. That was their big thing when they announced it, and that's still the case now. And they're focusing more on health and fitness than they were in the beginning, but it's still about that being the most personal device that's always on you. That was their message from the beginning. It's still their message now, and that's what they have to figure out for the VR headset.
Exactly. That's going to be the challenge. And I was just pulling up here on Twitter. Mark Gurman was talking about a 3D mixed reality world and a video service for the upcoming headset. I'm curious to see what that means, because I would be very surprised if this 3D mixed reality world that Gurman is referring to is a metaverse type of thing. I would imagine it will, knowing Apple, be more lifestyle, organization, maybe fitness oriented than like do a Zoom meeting with cartoon characters.
Yeah, I'm so curious to see what Apple would launch on a VR headset. I could definitely see it being a platform where third parties, launch apps on it. But like for mixed reality, you can sort of look at like the Apple Watch and just say like some of that stuff, like that you just look at your wrist and you get some information. Well, put that information in front of your face, navigation directions and notifications, whatever. I can imagine that more easily. But an Apple VR headset, I can't quite imagine, what that would look like, and like what first party app would be on that.
Second Life.
Yeah,
you got to bring it back.
I mean, I could see, third party metaverse kind of things. I'm trying to think like first party, like what is it? Like, oh, you can watch your favorite Apple TV Plus shows in VR, in a VR theater
with spatial audio,
in the Steve Jobs theater with spatial audio.
Honestly, they probably will do that. I think.
I could see it. Like, I don't know. You can play your favorite Apple Arcade games. You hold your iPhone like a controller and you play your favorite Apple Arcade bangers in VR. I don't. I'm just like trying to think of what it would be. Like seriously,
Yeah,
what would it be?
I mean, this is the thing that I think Apple is arguably good at is they are capable of predicting a trend better than creating one. Uh, Whenever they have tried to create a trend, I mean, memojis, no, they tried. It's a gimmick. It never became more than a gimmick, and they also don't, they don't completely commit to one like Meta has. So if they do try something new, it's not permanent. But I would say, I would argue that the difference between Meta and Apple is that Meta, and someone commented this before, Meta is trying to force a trend. Apple is probably more along the lines of crafting one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I feel like Meta. I don't know what they're doing, but it almost seems like a sunk cost fallacy kind of thing that they're like, no, this is gonna
Yeah.
work. We're gonna keep putting
We've done
money
a
into it.
billion
It's gonna
dollars. We got to
work.
keep going.
Exactly. That's kind of what I feel like. But like, yeah, like Apple will try things. They won't, commit more than they have. Like there's things like, I don't know, the touch bar and like the era of devices being super thin. And now,
Yeah.
they've kind of moved away from that. There are things that like that happen and Apple tries them and 3D touch, whatever. I could go on and on.
Mhm.
But there are things that Apple tries and they stick with it. And then if it doesn't work out, they'll move away from it. They're not going to say like, "Oh, we're sorry, like we shouldn't have done
No, they'll
that."
never
But
do that.
they'll never apologize for that. But they'll move away, and not that they even have to, but they'll move away from it, and they'll move on. And so I definitely agree that that's the difference between Facebook, between Meta and Apple, and it's good for Apple.
The difference between both of them and Twitter, however, is that they seem to be run by people that are at least blessed with the gift of relative sanity, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
We've
Relative.
avoided talking about it. We haven't talked about it that much yet, but as a frequent user of Twitter, I am both extremely amused and a little saddened to watch this almost comical shit show. And like, look, I'm waiting. I've been watching all the prominent Elon boys. I've been waiting and watching for the Elon boys to come to reality, and I'm legitimately wondering what it's going to take, because what in the holy what what is he doing, bro?
Dude, I genuinely, first of all, everything that happens on there is like, I don't think I could
Insane.
like, I can't even, if I like sat down and tried to predict, like think of the
Yeah.
craziest things that could happen, I feel like whatever actually happens would be crazier than that. It's just
Oh yeah, easily.
everything.
It's like, this is okay. I I did not used to have strong feelings on Elon Musk. I mean, obviously, he sort of positioned himself as like a real life Tony Stark. People liked him. I never really was that into him, but it was just kind of like, okay, relatively harmless billionaire, if that's possible, who make good electric car and also want do space thing and drill hole. Okay, cool. No issues with that. And then uh the past year, Elon has, it's almost intentional. He's like, "Hey, my reputation. We'll just do that for fun." Like, dude, the stuff, okay. Elon is a talentless hack. He is only rich. You know how we talked about luck being integral
Mm-hmm.
to a successful business? Elon
Mm-hmm.
Musk has only ever gotten where he is because of luck. He had the right connections when he left college to start a payment platform, or to not even start, but to join a payment platform that merged into another payment platform that, by the way, fired him before merging yet again into what would eventually become PayPal. But because he was already involved, he got his big, tasty paycheck, used that $100 million, put 6 of that into Tesla as an investor, managed to sue his way into being retroactively considered a co-founder, which, what the hell is that? So that wasn't even his idea. Didn't even really risk all that much to buy it. Got funding from the government, which allowed him to actually make it. Like, I'm sorry, bro. That is not... It's not that he had no ability to get to that point, right? You obviously have to have some amount of savvy to make those judgments and predictions and get that funding. But you cannot be sitting here and telling me that every single penny of that is like this like gigabrain strategy of like hard work. Come on. There's no look, and there's already people like, I sound jealous of Elon. What a cuck. I don't want 173 trillion billion dollars. That's an absurd amount of money that nobody could possibly need in the entire world. I don't care. I don't want to be in that position. It's not jealousy at all. It's just reality. It's a guy, bro. Why are there so many people that are so intent on defending a person who very clearly bought Twitter on it was very clearly a like Redditor's armchair bet to be like, oh, let me do this as a meme. Then they said, okay, do it. And then he said, oh, haha, never mind. And then they said, okay, we're going to make you do it. And now he's panicked. He's out $44 billion. His value is tied to Tesla's value. So every time he screws up Twitter, he screws up Tesla. And that screws up him, which screws up Twitter. And he's in this feedback loop of like, oh, crap. I'm no longer surviving off of luck, VC backing, and government paychecks. And now I have to actually know what I'm doing in a field that I have no experience other than being a Reddit meme lord with a bunch of cringe virgins that want to see my memes. And that's his only skill set. And he's sitting there with $44 billion in the hole, buying a business that he doesn't understand. And the only thing he can think to do is wave his baby arms around and break things in the hopes that he makes $1 in return.
I think that just about sums it up. You know, there's a lot of funny details along the way, but I think that just about sums up the whole situation.
Yeah, that's sorry for that rant, but yeah, that's basically Elon. Stop defending him. Why do you feel like you owe Elon anything? I don't understand this. Like, I don't understand why people defend him. And like a lot of people are, this same guy is like, oh, you're clearly so triggered. Oh, Lib, you're so triggered, you cuck. I don't care. I don't give a shit. I like using Twitter and I'm annoyed that he's ruining it. But beyond that, I don't care about what Elon does. If anything, I'm saying this out of the absurdity of the fact that people do care and think that he's doing stuff that's worth defending. No, it's just a guy with too much money who doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah, I don't know. The Elon stands, the Elon fans are just crazy. I don't know. They have like the worst arguments, like the whole thing about free speech. I don't understand that. It's not like, oh my God. It's not free speech is protection from the government. It's not protection from a private company. And people, I hate to say this, people don't want this free speech. If you go look at Truth Social and all those other, social media companies like that, where just the worst of the worst stuff gets said, that's what happens when you have free speech. And most people don't want that. They want to have some level of moderation so that these terrible, terrible things don't show up in their feeds. Most people want that, and that's not a bad thing.
The thing that Elon Musk and his crony band of Redditors actually want is not free speech. What they want is the freedom to harass and offend. It's not, if it were really about free speech, then they should be applauding the people that are criticizing and making fun of them and telling them that they don't like what they're saying. That is freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is when someone says something that pisses you off, you say, I don't want to buy your product anymore because I don't support that. That is not suppressing freedom of speech. That is freedom of speech. And to be on the side of like, oh, I want to be able to say the N-word on Twitter and not get banned. That's not freedom of speech. That's freedom to harass, to annoy, and to make other people feel like crap. There's no reason for that to be, the hill to die on.
Yeah, and the other thing is like there's a difference between freedom of speech and freedom from consequences of your speech. Like for example, there was a thing today. What was it? Senator Ed Markey, right? That was the guy that let's talk about this because this is the latest crazy thing that happened was that the senator sent some questions to Elon and basically said someone impersonated him, someone impersonated the senator on Twitter. I don't know exactly who, what they said or anything, but they impersonated him. And so he sent these legitimate questions to Elon and said, you should answer these questions. This guy's on the chair of like the communications committee or whatever, by the way. He sent these questions. And then what did Elon say? He said like, maybe it's because they were confused because your own account, your real account seems like a parody of itself. That was what he said. And it's like, wow, dude, what an epic dunk. What an epic troll. But then, God, I hope something comes out of it. And if something comes out of it, it's going to be whining about free speech this, free speech that. Like, guess what, dude? You said it, but you're not free from the consequences.
Absolutely. You can say whatever you want. If you go up to someone and you hurl insults and slurs at them and they beat you up, what are you going to do? Be like, oh, they're silencing my free speech? No.
Yeah.
Also, I have to brush up on the First Amendment, but I'm pretty sure the First Amendment does not give you a blank check to just do whatever you want in all situations. As this comment points out, it's illegal to scream fire in a crowded room. You can't incite violence. You can get arrested for disorderly conduct. You can get arrested for storming the Capitol. There are consequences like that. I just think it's so stupid. And, this like, oh, free speech. Oh, it's all about the cancel culture. Bro, cancel culture is free speech. That's the thing that these guys don't understand. If you're going to complain that people don't want you to be an asshole, then what you're doing is trying to suppress free speech because you're trying to tell them, stop, you have to let me say what I want. They're perfectly within their rights to say, I don't like that. I'm not going to support you. What's the alternative? You're going to be like, oh, you have to support this Hollywood actor who was accused of sexual misconduct. We're going to force you to see his movies. What are you talking about? That's idiotic. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know what they say that they want freedom of speech, but they want freedom they want their speech to be free and other people's speech to not be free. And they want to be free from the consequences of their speech. And that's just you can't run a platform like that.
And in the meantime, you charge $8 and hand out verification to anyone who wants it. Consequences be damned. And then you start just like going around banning people that abuse your patently terrible system, which, by the way, pretty antithetical to this whole, Elon goes on there and he's like, comedy is now legal again. People start trolling him. They get banned. Interesting. And then all of a sudden, the best part was, Noah, when that started happening, I did a tweet. I was like, I could have sworn that comedy was legal now. and here are these parody accounts making jokes getting banned, and people were like, actually, if you look in the terms and services, it says that parody accounts must be clearly labeled. And I'm like, oh, that's curious, because you guys didn't really seem to care about the terms and services back a year or two ago when people were getting kicked off for spreading disinformation, hate speech, and inciting violence. All of a sudden, then the terms of services were oppressive, but now that's just the way it is. Curious.
Yeah, and it's like, hey man, it's Elon's platform now. If he wants to change the terms of service, then that's his prerogative. But he's not going to do that. I don't know. It's just it's just everything was so bad. And then the Twitter, they launched the Twitter blue check marks. They waited until after the election because they knew it was a bad idea. They knew impersonation was going to happen. Spoiler alert, shock, it happened. And then they unlaunched it, and it's still unlaunched as of right now. You can't get your blue check mark, the great equalizer that Elon said. You can't get it now. And we'll see if they bring it back or when they bring it back in the future. It's a wild ride. And again, I feel terrible for the employees that got laid off. And I think even more got laid off today and yesterday and very recently. They're still laying people off. People are still finding out that they've been laid off. And I feel terrible for them. I feel terrible for the people who use Twitter, who have made livelihoods on Twitter. I feel bad for you. I know Twitter is not your primary platform, but you have a good audience there, and I know that it helps. Your reach with your videos and your insights and your general stuff that you do online. So I feel bad for all of that. But for me, just random person that just goes on Twitter occasionally when I'm bored, it's definitely not boring in a terrible way for Elon, but it's definitely not boring.
Yeah, we'll close the podcast out with this. I am equal parts sad that a platform that I use very frequently and have met a lot of my friends on, John, Sam, Jonathan Morrison from last week's episode, met all of those people and many more on Twitter. It has given me a lot. I really enjoy the platform, so I'm equal parts sad about it. But I'm also equal parts get fucked, Elon. You reap what you sow, you dumbass, and you deserve every dollar that you lose.
Yep.
And then some.
He fucked around, and now he's finding out.
Absolutely. And you know what everyone here is going to find out?
What's that?
That the episode is now over.
Oh, yeah.
So
good.
Thank you guys for joining us. Bit of I don't know. This is maybe a controversial video, but sometimes tech goes to some places and we got to go with it. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Jon Prosser showed up right at the very end to talk about how he's sabotaging Twitter on purpose. I honestly don't know that it is intentional. It's kind of giving reckless baby vibes, but I have been your host. I'll tell you that for sure. Luke Miani.
And I've been your host, Noah Rubin. We are off for the next 2 weeks. We might do something in that time, but we're not live for the next 2 weeks because I will be on the East Coast, but then we'll be back after that.
We'll be right back after this 2 weeks. I guess.
Yes, have a good night.
Yes. Good night.
Yes. Good night.